Welcome back everyone to Angela's Craft Room. As in our previous video, I showed you how I do the two-step stamping technique for these flowers using the Stippled Blossoms Stamp Set. So today we're going to do the actual card and you'll see how we put it together in this type of design that I've done on this card. With this one, it's a happy birthday one, so I've done a different sentiment for the next one. So we'll get started. So we're going to use a few different colours. So to start with, I'm going to have a piece of Night of Navy, which is 4 1/8 of an inch wide by 11 inches long, and then I've scored it at 5.5 inches. Okay, so it's just my basic card that I use all the time. Then I'm going to take a piece of cherry cobbler, which is 5 1/4 inches by 3 7/8 of an inch, and we're going to do, that's going to be my next layer. So we're just going to pop that on there, and I'm going to just use some snail, so that's 5 1/4 inches by 3 7/8 for those of you that like me to give you the measurements. And we're just going to pop that on there. So that's the front of the card. And then we're going to take a piece of Very Vanilla, which is 5 inches by 3 5/8 of an inch. Now I've already put the sentiment on it. This is the piece this is Very Vanilla, and this is the piece that we're going to be stamping on. So I'm not going to adhere that to the card as yet. But I've also cut a piece of Very Vanilla for inside, which is 5 1/4 inches by 3 7/8 of an inch, and I've already done the sentiment. Because I use VersaFine Onyx Black ink, it does take a few minutes to dry, so I just stamped that before doing the video so that I'm not going to smudge my sentiment. So I use the VersaFine ink pads for watercolouring, or if I'm using my Copic markers, anything like that, and it won't bleed. And the thing I like about the VersaFine, I have them in the little 1 inch or 1 inch square cube ink pads, and I find they're really easy to use because I don't use an acrylic block very often. I use my Misty for everything, my Misty tool. So I just find the little ink pads are really good. So with love and best wishes, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to set that aside, and we're going to bring in, this is the piece we're going to work on. So I will need my Misty. Now, if you didn't see the previous video on how I stamp, how I do my two-step stamping, I encourage you to have a look at the previous one. I'll try and remember to put the link to the previous video underneath this one when I publish it. Now with this one, what I do is I stamp the 3 big flowers first. So you just have to decide where you want your 3 flowers to be. So what I do is I stamp the one down here first. So I'm going to be using Night of Navy ink pad and Pool Party. So we'll just open those. So as I said in the previous video, you need a dark colour and a very light colour. So I'm going to be using Night of Navy as my dark colour and then Pool Party as my very pale colour. So I'm going to be taking the detailed stamp first and stamp that, and then I'm going to be using this stamp over the top of the detailed one. That's how I do the 2-step stamping. I know people do it in the opposite way, but I do encourage you to have a look at that previous video that I did. So I'm going to have that about there, because I like to have the corner flower pointing in this direction, and then I'll bring one in down that's looking down, and then I'll have another one here that's facing. So to start with, I'm going to stamp. And another thing what I do is just position that so that like that. Actually, pop that there. So I've got my pencil because I want to see my little mark there on the back of my stamp. You would know why that is there because if you'd watched my previous video. So I'm just going to put a pencil mark there so I know which way my next stamp needs to be. So I'm just going to take my Night of Navy and stamp that up. And bring that down. And I might just stamp it up again. I want that colour to be nice and deep because that's my definition of the flower. And it's the more detailed. And then I just use a Lawnthorn chamois and I just wipe off the ink off my ink pad. Then I'm going to take what I call the block out stamp, and as you'll see I have a mark on it as well, a pen mark, and where I've put the pencil mark so I know which direction the stamp should be, I'm just going to pop it down there. Make sure none of the stamp that I just stamped shows out from any area, and that I've got that in the same direction as the pencil mark. And then I'm going to take my Pool Party, stamp that up. Then I take just a piece of scrap paper. Now this is just photocopy paper because I'm going to stamp off on that, just to remove a little bit of the ink from the stamp. And then we've got our beautiful flower. Just love that flower, just love it. So then we need to do our second flower. So this time I'll just bring my magnet down there. Now don't worry if some of this is going to go off onto your Misty. Just depends which way you want it to face. So just get my pencil again and just a little mark there so I know which way that's going to go. Then stamp up once again with the Night of Navy. And I'll just pop a bit of scrap paper underneath because some of it's going to stamp off. Like that. And I'm just going to stamp that one more time. It's not a hard card to do, it's just knowing how to design the card. So I'm going to leave that piece of paper under there, just clean off my stamp and bring on the more solid stamp. So I've got my arrow, my little mark there, so I know which way I want it to be. And then we're just going to add some Pool Party. And we'll just stamp it off first. It's entirely up to you whether you stamp it off, but I think it's not pale enough if I don't stamp it off. And then we've got a lovely flower up there. And then we just need to put a flower down in the corner. So I'm just going to turn that Misty triangle. Just cleaning off my stamp. Then I'm going to bring this one so it's facing slightly towards the other flower. It's just going to be underneath that sentiment, and I'm just going to make a mark there where my mark on my stamp is. So then we're just going to put a bit of Night of Navy on there. So I didn't put, just don't want that to transfer onto the card. I forgot to put the piece of paper underneath there, but that's alright. I'll just put it under there for the second stamping. And you don't have to stamp this first colour twice, it's just I like to, sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. It just depends how deep of a colour that you want. So I'll just clean that off to re-stamp it because I noticed it had gone on to parts of the stamp that I didn't want it. I didn't want to transfer it onto the card. So now we're just going to do the what I call the block out stamp, and I'm just lining up my mark there so I know approximately, hope my head's not in your way, approximately where it's in the direction that stamp is facing. So then just the pool party one more time. Stamp it off and down, and you just experiment with your colours on a scrap piece of paper. So that's our 3 flowers done. So see how easy that is. It's just a matter of positioning your stamp and using your pencil marks like I showed you in the first video. I'll just close these ink pads. So that was Night of Navy and Pool Party. So I'm just going to take that off now. And I just want to remove those pencil marks. I think this stamp just gives your card such a wow factor, and I'm going to be doing a couple of different style cards using this stamp set, Stippled Blossoms. It's beautiful as a background stamp as well, so we'll do that maybe next time, but I am going to be doing a couple. So that's our 3 stamps that we've stamped already. So now I'm going to, I've got a little leaf. Now this little leaf, it's not from the Stippled Blossoms, it's from Lovely as a Tree stamp set, which is one of my very favourites, and it's this little leaf over here. Because we haven't got that much room on the card, and this is in one instance that I don't use my MISTI, I'm just going to be lightly stamping up the leaf and just see where I actually want it. So I'm just going to lightly stamp it up. Stamp it up again. Now it doesn't matter if it overlaps. The closer the better. So you're just filling up the spaces at this stage. I'm just being very careful not to put my hand into the wet where I've already stamped. So it's just a matter of filling in the spaces, so you can see how easy that is. Now I'm just going to do a couple of little stamps over here. Just a couple in there. So you can see that's coming together. Now I'll just leave that there in case I want to add another leaf. Now before I came on to do the video, I did the little flowers and cut them out to save some time. So these are the little ones I've done. Now if you look at that video before this one, you'll see how I did my two-step stamping for those little flowers, because it is a bit of a different technique than the big one. So you do need to see the video before. So then you just, we just need to work out where you want to put your flowers. Oh, and the colours for these little flowers, the big flowers was Night of Navy and Pool Party, and the leaves I've stamped in olive green, and now these little flowers I did in Cherry Cobbler and Pink Pirouette, just in case you're interested in that colour combo. So just going to place these to see where I want them. That looks alright. I've got a few spares. So now we're just going to grab our stamping dimensionals. Just pop them on the back there. I don't want to cover up the big flower that much, but that's alright, that one there. And then we'll just pop these two on. I might even put that one up a bit higher, up there. And then just the last one. And even though this is a retired set now, the Stippled Blossoms. I'm sure a lot of you have it out there in your, if you don't, it's one worth trying to get. You know, a lot of people sell off their stamps, so I'm pretty happy with the leaves, so I don't think I'll be adding any more leaves. So that's just our top piece. So I'll just close off that ink, and all we need to do now is pop that on the front of our card like so, which I'm just going to grab a bit of multi-purpose glue just in case I don't do it completely straight. Just gives me a little bit of grace to be able to move it. Now this top piece, it measured 5 inches by 3 5/8. And you do need to work on that piece before adhering it to your card, because as you saw, some of the stamping went off the card. So if you go putting it on, the card first, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble. So we're just going to pop that on our card. Try and pop it on as straight as possible. I just like to go around the edges first because it does move a little bit with the multi-purpose glue, but it is good if you don't get it as straight as you like it. But I'm pretty happy with that, so we can pop that glue away. And then if you like, you can add some little pearls to the little flowers. So we'll just quickly do that. So just one little pearl in each center, just on the little flowers, not the big ones. If you wanted to, you could add a little bit of Winker Stella on the center of the big flowers, but I've chosen not to. And that stamp that sentiment stamp I used, it's actually from an Australian company called Kazaz, but it is a retired sentiment anyway, but they do have some lovely sentiments. It's not a Stampin' Up sentiment. So there we go. That's our card for today. So this was the first one that I did. And then this is the one we did today. So just have a play first with your colours and work out which method works better for you in the way of lining up your flowers. But I'm thrilled that I've found a way that I can line my flowers up when I'm doing two-step stamping, especially with this particular stamp set. But thank you, and please subscribe to my channel. It does help me. And until next time, happy crafting.